From Wall Street to Washington and all over the country, we're talking about the topics that matter most to you and your money. This is Bulls and Bears. Hi, everybody. I'm David Asman. Joining me on the panel today, our very own Susan Lee is here. Scott Martin, Kingsview Asset Management Chief Investment Officer. Jonathan Honig of the Capitalist Pig Hedge Fund and editor of a new textbook, by the way, called Americanism, more about which later. And Jonas Max Ferris, Max Fund's founder. Scott, Jonathan, and Jonas are all Fox contributors, and we're happy to see them here today. Big news out of the White House. President Trump looking for across-the-board tax budget cuts. Take a listen.
I would like you to come back with a 5% cut. Get rid of the fat. Get rid of the waste. And I'm sure you can do it. I'm sure everybody at this table can do it. It'll have a huge impact.
Well, I said across-the-board tax cut, Jonathan. That would be nice, but budget cuts are nice, too. It's a start, right?
Yeah, it's a start. Do it. Talk about it. I mean, David, the budget is up 17% year over year. The debt is exploding. If the Republicans...
And we should be clear, by the way, the debt's exploding because of spending, not because of tax cuts. So stop
spending and start on the federal level. You know, Americans over the last 10 years have tightened their belts. They're not as leveraged as they've been in the past. Time for government, especially, my God, if not now, when? We have a businessman president. Act like a businessman. As he said, cut the fat.
Jonas?
Some businesses spend a lot of money and have a lot of fat. Have you ever seen the ping pong tables?
It sounds like Tesla.
You ever been to a tech company? Okay, don't want to get on that. First of all, problem solved. 5% he just asked for it. We're going to have it any day now, right? Okay, it's going to take a little more work than just asking for a 5% cut. I will disagree. I think part of the problem is there was tax cuts to corporations that we needed but weren't fully paid for in the budget. Spending went up. It's both sides here. You can't just...
But revenues are at all-time highs.
But what's bad with...
Revenues are always at all-time highs when the economy's at all-time highs.
Okay, fine, but then don't say we don't have the money, though. I mean, because that's...
Spending is what's causing the deficit.
Donald Trump,
clear, right?
as we saw...
You can't cut
Boys, promises made, promises kept, right? Smaller government is a mantra of the Republican Party. He's upholding that. I appreciate it. No, well, still is, apparently.
Right, let's see it.
That's what you voted in, isn't it?
The problem that we have, and we have some figures that we can put up on the board. The overall budget is $4.4 trillion. That's how much the budget is. What he's talking about is taking that middle figure, $1.3 trillion, because the top figure, that's Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security,
not going to touch it.
2.7. You can't. It's illegal to touch it, believe it or not. But it's just that top figure. You'll end up with a savings, by the way, about $400 billion is just interest on the debt. You'll end up with a saving of $57 billion. That ain't bad, right?
It's not bad. You said promises made, promises kept. I like Promises, Promises, Naked Eyes. Favorite song of all time.
Is that a drinking
It's
game,
really true.
or?
No, that's
Okay.
back in Jonas's college days. Here's the thing, though. The reason I do like this 5%, though, is it's a start, and it's reasonable. Because if you all remember, we haven't had a balanced budget in government since I was pretty much going on being prom king. You were taking Jell-O shots before going out at your college dorm, and Jonas was probably surfing in Miami. So that's how long it's been. That's how treasured this deal is as far as maybe actually getting some budget responsibility here.
And the president, frankly, has lost a lot of the fiscal conservatives like myself because of his spending. So I think this would be a small start, David, on actually reigning in government. I mean, if you're going to talk the walk, walk the walk. And I would give the president...
But part of the problem is we don't actually know how many agencies are there. 15 departments, the Department of Education, et cetera, et cetera. There are 96 independent agencies, 220 executive departments by one account. By another account, there are 430 different federal agencies.
Cut some agencies. Instead of building a new wall, building a new space agency, cut
Jonas,
some agencies.
you got a Mick Mulvaney in there as head of the Office of Management and Budget. He's a tough guy. He knows where the numbers are,
Donald
right?
Trump is a tough guy on budgets if the Republican Party would let him be a tough guy. As we heard in the leaks, he wanted to offset the corporate tax cut with a high super bracket on income taxes, but the party, who's always scared of the next election, unlike Trump, who can go into election and do whatever he wants, apparently, is like, no, we're Republicans. We can't pay for that corporate tax cut as much as we needed by doing. Ergo, we've got lower revenues than we would have if we had a slight offset, and he increased the defense budget at the same time to humor all these people. So that path is not going to end well. That's
But it ended. But the growth is ending very well.
That's,
right
that's the thing, though. You can't choke off the growth, because the second you choke off the growth, then you got a real problem.
But
And you got it on
FYI,
both sides.
the tax cuts were promised to be not affect the deficit.
Right.
Am I right? I mean, that was the big sale point. We're going to cut the taxes, but don't worry, it's not going to blow up the deficit.
But corporates are making so much money because of the tax cuts. They're buying back shares, hence the stock market are close to record levels. I mean, there has been some benefits from all this spending. This
And
blowout.
they're expanding. They're hiring people. That's why we have more jobs and we have people to fill them, because
of the
companies are
the
hiring.
government spending?
Because
cuts.
because businesses are hiring.
I don't know,
people.
David. You're always talking about government spending being a boost to the economy. Me and Jonathan doubt. I will
Go back to the Obama
the ones
years,
that
then, if you
actually have
guys
to
want
pay
to.
for in the future.
Yeah.
You're stealing from our futures, right, with the
I am
deficit.
for
But if
the
you're finding
corporate tax
jobs
cuts
in the meantime,
and
it's
the
not a bad
effects
thing.
of them, we need to remain competitive. Corporation taxes are low around other countries. We had to match that, but it needs to be covered by spending cuts and tax increases somewhere else in the budget, as the president seems to know, but no one will let him address. That's all I'm saying.
Then do it. You know, if you can't cut 5%, I think, David, to your point, this is an achievable goal. We've all had to cut that from our own budget.
By the way, even non-discretionary, even the stuff that you're not supposed to touch, like Medicare, has a 10% waste in its budget. So you've got 10% waste out of that. Maybe somebody like Mulvaney could do that.
Now, that's the problem, though, with governments that we've seen, no matter who's in the White House, right? They say they're going to cut waste, and you cut a little waste, and then guess what? More waste grows out of the ceiling or wherever, out of the floor, because it shows up. So even if you cut waste, as Trump said in that sound on tape, guess what? There's going to be more that's going to pop up. It always does.
Susan?
Well, I think the EPA is an example of that. They've gutted that agency, right? There's 5%
Bravo!
there.
There it is. Bravo!
Right there.
I mean, and you know what? The EPA, it's not like a metaphysical fact of government. I mean, David, this is an agency that essentially was created in the 70s, as I remember. This is not something that the founders said.
So was the Department of Education. So was the Department of Energy.
So
a lot of it came from the Carter administration.
I mean, Jimmy Carter, who was not a great president, to his credit, really deregulated, David. He got rid of entire agencies. So the president has a great opportunity.
Some of that might happen, Jonas, after the election. After the election, once that dust is settled a little bit, maybe you'll have more drastic moves.
I don't think we might get less drastic moves if there's any changes in Congress. So we might have had our drastic moves like the early years.
We had our chance.
We may, and I would say maybe. I mean, if you're talking about like infrastructure stuff, that could happen later. But as far as cutting the budget significantly, if you think that's going to happen later but didn't happen yet, I just think, look, I've been trying to cut my budget to 10%.
Well, he's never talked about. I mean, the president has never talked about.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm surprised, David. This is over a year now into the presidency.
Yeah.
Has he ever talked about cutting spending? Ever?
He's not really a small government.
No, he's not, and because he doesn't talk about
we got to wrap it. But as you said it to begin with, at least it's the beginning of something. So we're going in the right direction.